We are live after the 49ers upset victory in Philadelphia in the wild card round of the NFL playoffs. And Rod, when we did our preview during the week, I think we were both very conservative about the Niners' chances because of the matchup. And I will tell you, after having these conversations with Eagles fans, the Eagles side of things was, yes, this is probably a good matchup for us, but our offense is going to give you guys opportunities to stay in the game. And I thought, I was like, yeah, I get that. We talked a little bit about that, but, it is playoff time, and that is a championship locker room. And I think they're going to turn it up and they're going to have a good game. That was not the case. The Eagles played like they did in the regular season, and I was just so surprised. And I want to get your immediate thoughts here because we're only recording, 20 minutes after the game was over or whatever. But the way that the 49ers played, the idea that they would have a chance in Philadelphia to win this football game just boggles my mind, because I was thinking this entire time, like, okay, the Eagles are they're going to put some gas, there's some fuel on the fire here, and they're probably going to create some distance between these two teams. And that just did not happen. I'm not sure exactly what they were doing. I don't know why they played so conservatively in the second half. I don't know why they were completely comfortable with third and long in the second half. Whatever the reason is, I am happy. I feel like we reverse jinxed the game with our preview. But give me your immediate thoughts after the 49ers victory here.
Well, I thought just like you thought, and I think we had discussed it, that we felt that the Eagles would have that they would kind of flip a switch. But as the week went on, I just kind of felt when it came time to like bet it, for example, it was like I can't bet on the 49ers, but I can't bet on the after what I've seen from the Eagles all season. I can't bet on them either. Um but I look at this box score and it's like, okay, I figured everybody should just run the ball down the Niners' throat.
Yeah.
Well, they tried. I mean, they attempted 36 rushes. They basically threw it as much as they passed it. It was like 50-50. And it was I can't I really do not know what kind of voodoo Robert Saleh is putting on these teams, but it is I mean he's just a great coach. I mean, I guess because at a certain point, it was like we were at the end of the first half, and it's like we had like 86 yards and 50 and 61 of that it came on one play. It was like we didn't have anything going yet. Just like last week, we are right in the game. And I'm going to
Yeah.
be honest, I'm not going to be the guy that says, "Well, I knew it." It was quite the opposite. It was just like Seattle to me. It was like I feel like the Eagles are the better team, yet here we are right there with them. And it's I really because I'm looking at this box score and it's like um it's just I know that of this 286 yards passing, like 3 plays comprise like over half of that. And we didn't do anything rushing the ball yet. I guess I should not be shocked. I've watched this team now for 17 weeks, and there are very few times where the box score against good teams where the box score actually ends up telling the story. And this is another one of them. This is a very obviously I'm extremely happy, but it's confounding how we keep doing this. I mean, and I hope we're able to do it all the way back to Santa Clara, honestly. But
It'd be incredible.
yeah,
And
this
and
is
the I think, Bill Simmons would call them the zombie Niners. Like, you just think that they're out of it, and for whatever reason, they're in it. It took them, because I think part of when we were talking about our preview, our big worry was one of the big worries. There's some big worries was just their inability to throw downfield, and then Pearsall, Pretty Ricky, is inactive before the game, and we're like, okay, this is going to be more the same, kind of the same style of offense. They're not going to be able to throw deep, so we're going to have to figure out some other things. And then, I mean, this is like the biggest news outside of the victory is George Kittle popped his Achilles, and I'm sure he is happy for this team. He is a team player. This dude's going to be out for next season. That is
already.
right. Like, I mean, unless there's some, miraculous recovery, but Shanahan was asked about it on the press conference, and they asked him, like, you know, what the severity of it or whatever it was, and he was like, "Well, the trainers told me before he even went into the locker room. They just told me that it was an Achilles tear." And so, there's great evolution of medicine and surgery and technology today. And, the whole story with Jason Tatum with the Boston Celtics is, he is like so far ahead of schedule. And we've seen NBA players, but we have also seen Dre Greenlaw and how he dealt with his situation. So I don't want to overstate the Kittle thing, because that is something we'll be talking about a lot in the offseason. But it just further seemed like it was going to be so much harder for them to even move the ball in this game. And then you add Brock throwing one really bad interception and another one that I sort of saw where he was going, but he's throwing to a tight end and he's got a defensive back covering him, and
One
he
of the best defensive backs in the league, as a
and
matter of fact.
like that's either like a throwaway ball or you just got to lead Ton just so far and hope that he makes a great play. So Purdy's not necessarily on his A game, and it takes them a reverse uh wide receiver pass to actually shake loose downfield, and that was the McCaffrey touchdown. Now, I don't want to underestimate what Demarcus Robinson did. He had a fantastic game. That dude looked like he turned back the clock like 5 years for this game. And so he played awesome. He and Brock were right on the money, but outside of him, like Juwan Jennings had trouble getting open. Every time they threw Jennings the ball, it looked like a fight to see who could actually get their hands on it. And then when Kittle goes down, who's the one getting all the Kittle passes? All of a sudden, Kyle Juszczyk out of the backfield is catching these darts from Purdy in tight windows. And that guy, when that guy makes a catch, it's usually because the defense forgets about him and he scoots out for 20 yards, out of the backfield. But he was actually playing a vital role in the passing offense late in that game. So it's like all of these things that, for whatever reason, added up to victory. Goes back to what you said. Just that's kind of the team that they've been all year long. And I think it's also how the national fans and the national media see them, because there's a guy in a different Discord that I'm a part of that's unrelated to football, but we do have a football channel, and he used a specific euphemism that we won, so I'll say it. He said he called us this is the most broke dick version of the Niners, and yet here they are overachieving. Like, there have been so many different versions of this team that has been so much better than this team, and yet this team is still alive, which is pretty amazing to think about. What do
I
you
was
think?
having a similar conversation earlier this week, about the same thing, how this team is so improbable, in that it's one of those things where we will invariably be better next year, but it's possible that the record won't be as good. It's one of those. It's hard to explain, but they've got something special going on here, and yeah, it's look at some of these names: Malik Turner and Garrett
Did he play
Wallow,
offense
and
all year long? Did Turner take some snap in a wide receiver position all year long?
I don't think no, I don't think so. I
So,
don't think so.
the one time Purdy went to him, Malik Turner tried to kind of make a diving catch, and Purdy just threw a rope at him. And yeah, like if Turner's in regular season form, he probably makes a play. And I'm almost sure that he may have had some snaps in a game because they have had wide receiver injuries, but he's been special teams guy. And so Brady's like, "Yeah, you got to catch that one." And I was like, "Did someone wake up Tom and tell him that Malik Turner hasn't had a ball thrown at him all year long?"
He was the one who came with the nugget that Malik Turner hasn't had like a catch in like 4 years. I mean, so yeah, I mean, he's probably shocked to see a ball coming at him with off of anything other than a jugs gun. That's crazy. Yeah, this is a wild turn of events.
So I'm still kind of like, I'm not surprised at the victory as much as I am just like, okay, all of my thoughts about this game that we were going to talk about were going to be about the deficiencies of this team. And yet some of those deficiencies existed, and yet they still won. So let's talk a little bit about Brock because my son, JJ, he's a big Brock guy, but he's also a realistic Brock guy. And, he's not one of those guys that, Brock is the best quarterback in the NFL or anything. But
David Lombardi.
So, I was watching these wild card games. By the way, the only wild card game I got wrong was this one. This is the only one I got wrong so far. I had the Bills. Of course, everyone had the Rams, but I had the Bears, even though I'm still not sure how
They backdoored that one.
God, that's one of the worst. If I'm a Packers fan, I am so mad right now. I'm more mad than the Eagles fans deserve to be mad. Anyways, we'll talk about some of the wild card games after we're done with this one. But so I'm watching these games and I'm just like, man, these quarterbacks are cooking. Like, a team gets a lead and then the quarterback gets the team down the field, within minutes. And this is even Bryce Young is cooking the Rams in certain moments. So I'm like, okay, well, Brock, that there should be some opportunities for Brock to come back. And it was just after that first series, it was 3 and out. And then he throws a pick and then another pick. And then finally in the fourth quarter, just like I was hoping kind of would happen all game long, they start moving the ball. They're even actually able to run the ball late for some reason, because I thought Philadelphia had McCaffrey bottled up perfectly, like all game long. And then they finally get that touchdown with Brock improvising and stepping up and throwing the little wheel route to McCaffrey for the go-ahead score. This is like the best bad Brock Purdy game that you're going to see. Like some of it had to have been the wind. There were some balls where he threw them and you're like, okay, this thing has no chance just because of the wind. And, he's got a strong enough arm. I thought he threw some good balls today. I mean, then there were some other moments because of the pass rush where the one interception that he threw, I think he missed Juwan cutting down the field and he threw it to, I don't even remember who he threw it to, but it was clearly an interception. And right when he threw that ball, he kind of hesitated. He looked a little confused and he tried to throw it off his back foot. Once he let that ball go, I said to myself, this is a pick waiting to happen. And that's exactly what it was. I would say that is his one real mistake where I bet you he wants to take that throw back because he had no business throwing that football.
Yeah. It was interesting. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, the other interception was just, that's just when you're having to throw to a tight end and a fullback in the same play, it's because you just don't have the legs on the offense. But other than those, other than that really bad interception, I thought he played a good enough game to win at the end of the day, which he then put the exclamation point with that last touchdown. So it was kind of like not a great Brock performance, but a the best of a bad Brock performance, or the best of an average Brock performance. And I'm not sure that we get away with that next week, but for this game, it was just enough to win. So I was overall happy with Brock, though during the game I was just fighting myself to try to stay positive about the offense.
Yeah, it was one of those performances where, on social media we had McCorkle calls, or people talking about we need to go ahead and go to McCorkle. I understand that's our ridiculous fan base, but that just kind of highlights how, for somebody who, ultimately got it done in the big spots, it wasn't Brock's best performance, but when it mattered, he got the job done. I thought Brady did, talking about the nose up and nose down. That
Mhm.
was kind of interesting because, he made mention of it early, and then every time there was something funky, you'd go back to his nose up. And
Yep.
that, it kind of, I guess, aerodynamically kind of makes sense in terms of you wanting to drive the ball, you want the nose down, and if it's up, might tend to flutter. So that was interesting, and I think on both of those ones that were picks, they were a little fluttery. But yeah, I had thought that we had gotten past this point of, Brock referendums. I honestly thought that the 181 million guarantee would put that whole thing to bed. But clearly, McCorkle has his supporters, I guess.
Well, so one of those supporters was Tom Brady, who was uh, you know, he had made mention in a game that Mac Jones and I kind of wondered if that was a little bit of like in my shadow at New England guy, whatever, if that was the guy who was
Mhm.
drafted, so I thought it was kind of that influenced by that, but there's no way that Mac finishes the game today. Like
Oh no.
half the
Mm-mm.
reason why the Niners had a chance is because Brock was able to move around in that pocket. And I thought for the most part, McKivitz got someone put a move on him big time in that game. One of the sacks, the other sack was, pocket collapsed and Brock actually probably gained about 5 yards while losing a couple of yards on the sack because of his movement. But man, if you don't have Brock running in some of those cases and turning positives from negatives, this game would have been a lot different. And I think what would have happened is Mac would have just thrown a lot of balls into the ground, and he would have thrown a lot of balls to CMC, and CMC probably getting blown up on a couple of those just because, like, he wouldn't have had the time to sit back
Mhm.
and move around, whereas Brock was creating the time. Um, the other Brady thing that I thought was interesting, there were 2 balls that Brock threw that when you watch the way that the televised broadcast is for football, it looked like the balls were thrown behind the receiver. And so, as a viewer, you're going like, "Oh man, like is he just like, missing these guys or what?" And Brady's like, "No, well that was a really good throw because if he didn't throw it there and he threw it where the receiver was actually going, there's a DB coming across that may have been able to make a play on that." So him explaining that stuff is actually really cool as well because we would be able to see that if we were like at the game where you just get to see the
Right.
whole field, but on TV you don't get to see the whole field. So I like that stuff that Tom was doing, and my wild card regimen or my playoff regimen is I record every game, and then
Mhm.
most of the time I don't watch them even close to real time. So sometimes, like last night's game, I got spoiled and I wasn't able. So I was like, I'll just watch the rest of it in the morning. But you get to hear all of these broadcast duos, and so you got to hear Greg Olson and Joe Davis in the Rams game, and you got to hear Romo in this morning's game. I kind of like Brady, like comparing him to everybody else. He's not perfect, but he's actually improved a lot in this
He's
year.
so
So
much better.
I think he's actually doing a really good job. I was joking with my wife Crystal. I was like, the only thing is when they put his face on TV and I could see that Botox smile. Then I'm like, I just want to hear him. I don't want to see him. But the okay, so some of the stuff that we haven't even talked about, where the best part of this game was in the second half. They I'll pull up the numbers here, but there were moments where I thought they had bottled up Saquon. Now Saquon did go for 100 yards. He had that 30-yard run, and there were a couple of others where he broke out. But when they were trying to just shorten the game and run the ball and kill clock, that's when the 49ers were able to make plays on him. And I wish I could hear kind of how Saleh keyed on that. I don't know if they were just didn't believe that Hurts was going to pull the trigger and they were just dead out to stop the run. But I thought in the second half, that defense didn't actually look bad. They looked fast. They looked like they were reading stuff. Saquon was kind of trying to get out and shake loose, and one guy tackled. He wasn't making guys miss. What did you see in the second half with the defense and how they were able to just keep everything in front of them? Pretty much, like I was just so impressed by how they played in that second half.
I can't wait to like rewatch it. But the things that, he called several run blitzes that were really successful. He called several run blitzes that didn't necessarily end up blowing up the run play, but had the guys in position to make plays on passes. I mean, he has just been great this year. And then he's just got these guys playing out of their minds. I mean, everybody made a play. My God, Siegel was out there making plays.
Yeah.
Wallow made a couple of plays. It is a. I don't really like, you know, kind of like the sports cliche talk, but they do play better than the individual sums of the parts.
Mm-hmm.
The whole is much better than the individual players. I am not one who tends to believe like Brady at one point quoted Mailata as saying that a lot of these guys remind them on the Niner defense remind him of a younger him, hungry and out to prove something. And that may be the case. I a lot of them are too young to know, but I go back and forth with our fan base a lot, and it, this week Huff got another Pro Bowl nod, and Talahano Hofunga, for those who don't know that slang. Um, and I just don't see anybody in this safety group that's ever going to get a Pro Bowl vote. I mean, a All Pro vote, let alone be actually a All Pro. Just another dig at Jed and our a selection of who to keep and who not to keep. But
Yeah.
yeah, but nevertheless, you've got guys out here making plays, and that is, I mean, whether or not they are great players is at this point doesn't really matter. They're playing well and they're playing well together. and Salah seems to have his hands and he's got these guys playing at a very, very high level. And as we saw last year, there are some coaches who have better talent, who, because I mean, even as bad as everything went last year, I think it's not a hot take to say that we were more talented last year than we were this year.
Yeah.
And you Sorensen clearly wasn't able to push buttons and get these guys to play the way Salah does. So yeah, it's amazing to watch. And it's one of those things where, like last week, you go and you watch the Seattle tape and it's like you just can't, it's crazy that the plays that these guys are making in the position that they're in to make these plays. It's just it is it's a master. I'm learning so much watching what this defense is doing this year that it's really unprecedented. I've never seen anything quite like it.
Somebody asked Shanahan in the presser if if this game like really cements that Salah's not going to be back, and he
Oh,
was like, I don't know if it's this game. Like he's great. Like why wouldn't he be somewhere else? So they know, and
mhm.
he this is just him adding to that tape, right? Him going
Yeah.
from being a top contender to a hotter than hot contender for one of these positions. So MD's says Siegel needs to keep the safety position because his speed and hitting ability can't be coached. I know Jair Brown, Shanahan said that it's a hamstring, so that tells him that he's probably going to be out for next week. And then someone asked, MD's also asked, is Fred coming back? And I think Shanahan said that they would not open up his window for next week. So, that's actual news coming out, because I know fans are just chomped at the bit for Fred to get back. And I'm like, maybe for the Super Bowl. Like, if I don't know. I saw this dude. I don't know if this was a recent video or not, but someone posted a video of him like scaling some like part of the building in Santa Clara, like he was like Spider-Man. Like this dude is tremendous. Um, so I guess some of the other things coming out of the Shanahan presser, they had asked him if that locker room and kind of the where they were doing the press conference, if it was haunting him a little bit, because they remember him being very emotional when Brock went down. And he said, no, when we went back and we beat them, it was, but not this time. Like I didn't even really think about it. So yeah, so here's the thing about the defense that I wanted to mention, and I wanted to get your thoughts on. I was trying to explain to other teams or to other fans why I just wasn't super positive, or I didn't think that they were going to come out and win this game. And some of it had to do with the fact that their starting linebackers were Kendricks, Gallo, and Curtis Robinson. And I was like, those are three guys who were not anywhere near the field when they were healthy. Like that is so hard to try and to try and get the best out of these guys, this unit. They've never played together. These guys are, special teamers at best, and yet they were able to play so well in the second half like they did today. And then I was thinking, this is kind of like a gelling opportunity. Now, I don't know if they get some guys back next week. I don't know what's going to happen with D Winters, but if you think about the perspective of like they had they were part of something like today where they go into Philly and they win, they have to feel a lot better about themselves with this game under their belt heading into Seattle, which is going to be even tougher game than this game was. But I have to think that getting this one underneath them will only help them for next week. Not that I think that, we're going to see the greatest unit of all time. But that has to matter, especially in the playoffs when it's, last game of the season. You have to think about it that way.
Yeah, it really is. I'm not sure who you said that Siegel. He had tackles today, but he got beat twice, and it wasn't like he should be out there because of his speed. Well, that speed didn't help him. He got cooked 2 times, and the reason he hadn't been playing before because he was fast before, but he gets beat like a drum in coverage. So I guess we have a bunch of safeties. That is all of our safeties in a nutshell. They can all come downhill and hit, but you as an offensive coordinator, you love seeing all of these guys out there in coverage because that is not what they do well. And in today's NFL, that guy doesn't play. You can't be a guy who can just run downhill and hit. You have to be somebody who can operate in coverage, and none of these guys are. I'll never that Ram tape is some of the worst you'll ever see. Our safeties, all of our secondaries getting cooked like fried chicken. One of the worst plays this season is there's an out to Devontae Adams that Malik Mustafa is just so he looks like a high school player on that coverage. I mean, so again, but these are guys who are making plays. Look at our guy Garrett Wallow had 11 tackles, and he was objectively awful last week. He had a pass defended. He had, 11 total tackles, 5 solo. He had himself a game.
Kendricks
But
had 10 himself too.
right, we all make, a big deal about that. But in this defense, everything is funneled there. So always, even prior to this, both the defense that Harbaugh ran and the one Shanahan runs are very similar in that way that everything's kind of funneled there in your middle linebacker. That's why he has to be a stud because it's all there and it's his job to make the plays. And but that being said, they're making the plays, so I'm not dismissing the job that they're doing because Curtis Robinson was in there too, and not today, but when he was in there, that's like some of the worst linebacker play I've ever seen. He just wasn't good, and I'm not a guy who attacks players, and that's not personal. That's just objectively he was objectively bad. So I say that to say that I'm not making excuses by saying, well, Wallow made plays because the plays are there to be made because they're also there to not be made if you aren't able to. So yeah, it has been really amazing how what are they on their 7th, 8th, and 9th linebackers at this point? Because I know I'm just guessing because I know all 5 that started the season are gone. And there's still guys out there making plays and whatnot. That's crazy.
When the feeling, when Luke Gifford is said to be inactive, and you go, "Oh man, that means something, right?" Luke Gifford of all people, you're like, "Oh my god," and like that's how bad it was, and yet they were still able to, for whatever reason. Now, if we look ahead to Seattle, you have to believe if you are looking at this from a positive perspective for the Niners, stopping the run is a priority because they did not, and both of those running backs in Seattle looked fantastic. The fact that Sam Darnold is the quarterback of the other team gives you some hope for sure. Going into Seattle is not great. There are some skeletons that we have from going into Seattle previously. But if you are looking at this with the glass half full, Salah and Shanahan kind of scheming on how to figure out how to at least slow down the running game and force Sam Darnold to beat you. Now, Sam Darnold also has like the best receiver in football that he can just throw to whenever possible, and that thing's more than likely coming down as a reception. But the idea that Sam Darnold may throw us one or two, I think is kind of how I would look at this. And I was talking to someone the other day, and they had picked the Jaguars. They're like, this Jaguars team is real. They're, you know, they're not the same Jags, this and that. And I was like, I think they're better, but until Trevor Lawrence stops throwing the ball to the other team in big moments, I'm not going to see them that way. And so they're playing the Bills today, and it was like who was kind of left with the ball was going to win. And so the Jags had I don't remember how much time they had left, but then Trevor Lawrence threw the football to the other team to end the game. And so until Sam Darnold proves us wrong that is not who he is, that is how I'm going to see him. And that is where my optimism for next week goes, because player for player, personnel for personnel, Seattle's a better football team. But I'll take Brock over Sam, and that may be, the kind of where the comparison for us, where it's like, okay, what unit is better, like that might be the only real one. But there is something when QB1 on the other team is unproven, and so that's where I would lean as far as next week. What are you thinking about next week?
Well, if they did not have Jackson Smith and Jigba, I would I think we would see, if it were me, we would see the Green Bay 49er game where Jimmy G had eight eight pass attempts. I would just run the ball. I'd run the ball, run the ball, run the ball until we stopped it. I've been saying that for a month, that if I don't see why teams just don't line it up and just make us stop the run. Don't stop running it until we just force them to pass it, because everybody is successful. But I know they look back there at that secondary and just think we can get them, and that's not a ridiculous notion. I mean, there's nobody back there that scares you. But again, it's just I don't see how, but that is, if we're gonna hang our hope or hang our hat on something, is that Sam throws it to us a couple times and we catch it. But it's just so hard because we don't turn teams over like that. We haven't this season. And I'm gonna go to the old trope that I believe that when you look at as physical as that game was, 2 weeks ago now, I think them having a week off is going to be a benefit to them. That we had to go cross country. Now we have to come back and we have to go up there to their place. Now it's going to be interesting to see um, where we fall in the schedule, because
Yeah.
we are still we are still doing Saturday and Sunday, right? It's just
Yeah,
everything. Yeah, because
the divisional round games are all still to be determined, but there will be a 1:30 and a 5 on Saturday, and then a 12 and a 3:30 on Sunday.
well, hopefully we get a Sunday game. But I guess, well, no, yeah, because that would be a short week because this is Sunday.
Yeah.
I don't know what day it is anymore, but yeah, that, so hopefully we can play on Sunday. Um, I hope so. I hope that because we need all the help and health that we can get. Another thing that was cool to me was that um we didn't hear anything positively or negatively about Trent. So that was good, that it was an uneventful game for him.
Yeah,
So that
this was Shelvin's point, was that it's different with Trent back, and that could be some of the difference for next week, is just having Trent there. Brock is not gonna be running like a chicken with his head cut off, hopefully, but, because Seattle, they were doing stuff last week with the idea of, like, "Come on, man. You ain't got anybody back there." So,
right.
that does change the game for them. I also wanted to point out a couple of other, comments in the chat room here. So, Robbie Torrey said, "Giants fan here, love y'all. Y'all are fighters." And that goes to my point where the national fan base sees the 49ers that's like this zombie team who, they're just so beat up, and yet they still come out. Also,
Undertaker.
yeah, Lorraine Davidson said, "49ers since the '80s. Let's go Dub City. All we do is win. Prayers up for Kittle. We run Philly." Love to see these comments. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the games that we've seen so far. The Patriots and the Chargers are playing right now, and then on Monday is the Steelers. And who does Steelers play?
D'Amico
Texans. Yeah,
in the
Steelers play
Texans.
Texans. So, of the 4 games that you've seen so far, uh, I still don't see any surefire team. Like, I don't see one great team yet. Now, we'll see with the Pats and the Chargers, and then tomorrow. I don't imagine that team is gonna come out of the Steelers and the Texans. I think there are some good things about the Texans for sure, but I don't know. I know that they're the team that has the bye. Denver and Seattle didn't play, so we didn't get to see them. But nothing yet I've seen in the playoffs so far has told me that there's gonna be a team that runs away with this thing.
No, not at all. And I just want to. I am not reporting, but I have on good authority. There are no truth to the rumors that D'Amico sent Mike McDaniel a bunch of Bitcoin to show up in Pittsburgh. so so Mike McDaniel will not be coaching the Houston Texan offense tomorrow. But apparently his phone has been blowing off the hook. There's teams that want to get him there as an offensive coordinator, which
Oh,
is
hell
not the
yeah.
most ridiculous thing in the world. I mean, he is a genius in that aspect of the game. You know how we do as Niner fans talking about him coming back here. Why on earth would he want to come back here and not call plays and and be basically Kyle's gopher again? I think
Can you
that
imagine that phone call? Kyle's like, uh, maybe you could be assistant head coach.
do I
Yeah,
get to call plays?
well, you get to call plays.
Um,
We got 4 preseason game or 3 preseason games or 2 preseason, whatever it is. You can call them in the preseason. Yeah, like there's no reason for him. Like, I mean, I think it is gonna be good for him, much like Saleh this year, where he runs an offense and kind of clears up his name and makes himself a really good candidate again, and then he can get out there. Now, the difference between him and Saleh, though, is maybe a little maturity in the interviews and in the way that he represents himself. I don't know if Mike McDaniels will change that aspect about him. I actually kind of like that about him, that he's
mhm.
just a little different. But he's not normal in that way for normal head coaches. But with John Harbaugh being available, he's got to be like probably number one on most of these teams' lists. And then when that domino falls, then you look for some of these other guys. But I think Salah's got a great opportunity, because what
Oh,
was there,
yeah.
like 10 jobs available now or something like that?
It's 9 now, and I don't think they're done because I could easily see Sirianni getting fired. I could see Tomlin moving on, and who else? Who was the other one that I was looking at that I had circled as
Uh,
somebody that
well, Green Bay, right?
oh,
Like,
the Green Bay, his seat is hot too. And I mean that's he's one of those ones though, he would go right up to the top of the
yeah,
list
for
as
sure.
somebody that teams would want. But I mean, I could easily see where they might will be ready to make a move. So it's crazy. It really is. What's been interesting this week, talking about Salah, and you go back and you look at it. I mean, I think one of the reasons that he's such a hot candidate is that if you go back and look at what really happened with the Jets, he's won the most games there has anybody has in the past 10 years. And then when you look at the final season, when you go back and look at it, the shit show was on the offensive side of the ball with Rodgers and Hackett, who he had no say in
Yeah.
bringing in. And as a matter of fact, what got him fired ultimately was the fact that he was about to demote Hackett, and that's Rodgers' guy. And so a choice had to be made, and the choice was that Robert Saleh was going to lose his job. Point being that I don't think that has quite the stain that fans think it does with other people in the NFL. I don't think that they hold that necessarily against him because they know what kind of shit show it was
It's a
before
bad
he got
franchise.
there and after he got there because spoiler alert, keeping Nathaniel Hackett as offensive coordinator did not work out for them either. After Salah was gone,
Yeah.
so yeah, he I just don't, with all these jobs open, and all of them, unlike, I was having a conversation with another fan last night about the fact that, he was making the point that the Ravens is the only job worth taking, which that's not true. That's the best job. But if there are several other jobs that, I mean, if you can't find a job that works for you this cycle, then you're probably never going to find one because they're never going to be perfect. Because if they were perfect, they wouldn't be looking for a coach,
Yeah.
So there are a lot of good jobs out there, and just about all the ones that save Arizona, but I can make a case for that too. All the ones that are considered that have requested interviews with him are ones that you would want. And hell, the Cardinals aren't dumb. I'd back up a trucker, just keep sending him trucks of money until he came there if I were them, because for a lot of reasons. I mean, he clearly is a culture setter, which they
Mhm.
need. And they are not an untalented bunch. The big question for them is they're going to have to decide what they're going to do with Kyler. I don't know
Yeah.
if I'd want to be any part of that, but they've got some pieces. Their defense is not bad. They've got Harrison and McBride, a decent offensive line. I don't know. I wouldn't want to sign up for the Kyler experience, but if they're able to trade him and do something like that, maybe I could take a pick and throw it to the. I doubt the Niners would trade Mac interdivision, but all you need, you get a bridge quarterback. Maybe you just roll with Brissett and try to draft a quarterback. Point is, I don't think any of these guys look at these jobs and say, "Oh," and unless it's like the Raiders or something crazy and just completely dysfunctional. Those
What
guys
about
look at those
Cleveland?
jobs and that's interesting. But, it's one of those things that I believe these guys are type A personalities, and I don't think that they look at these jobs and say and see any job that they couldn't go in and be a force multiplier and a culture changer. I just think that's the way these guys are wired, that they
Mhm.
can, I know they've stunk for 20 years, but let me get in there and watch what. Now, again, how realistic is that? I don't know, but I know that these competitive types are not sitting around thinking about, like the gentleman I was talking with yesterday, talking about how, well, if he flames out at another job, then he will be stuck as a defensive coordinator. I promise you, Robert Saleh is not thinking, well, what happens if I fail at my next? Get out of here. I'm sure that thought never crosses his mind when he's thinking about these opportunities, because they just don't think like that. But it's going to be interesting. I think he's gone because he has done nothing but solidify his reputation
Mhm.
as not only a brilliant tactician, but clearly he's able to connect with these guys in a way that is special. He's a good coach.
So, the Carolina and the Rams game, as I'm watching it, I'm just like, what is Carolina's defensive plan here? They're just gonna let Stafford just come all the way downfield and just pick and choose who he wants to score the touchdown? Like, what the hell was going on there? And then the other thing was the flip side was the Packers. They could have used a little bit of Alex Smith game manager in that game. Like Jordan Love, they have the lead and they just need to kill clock and move the football. This man is throwing balls in towards the end zone. There was a play. I don't remember if it was to Dobbs or not, but there was a long play, and the guy was falling untouched, and all he needed to do was fall in bounds, and he did not. He could not. He fell out of bounds and stopped the clock. And I'm just like, man, these. I get it. Every game this playoffs has been really close all the way down to the wire, and in those moments, you're not always making the proper decision. But gosh, like it's got to be tough. Like if you're the Packers and you go into Chicago and you're clearly working these guys and you're up 21-6, and it's just like, how does that team lose that game? It was almost I wonder what the difficulty score was for the Bears to come back, because even
That's
as
crazy.
they were coming back, I knew the outcome to the game when I was watching it this morning, and I was just like, "How are they gonna do this? I just don't understand how they're gonna do this." And then it was amazing, this comeback. So,
I think,
playoff.
like you said, when you look at I'm looking at the box score now, 46 pass attempts and only 23 rushes. I mean, how do you not run the ball just a little bit more? To, like you say, you're trying to take to take time off the clock, but he was trying, Love was trying to throw the kill shot, I guess. Then it really it backfired on them. It's it's unbelievable. And then you mentioned that Rams game. I guess Carolina's plan was for Matthew Stafford to bang his hand on somebody's helmet, and um, and that was going to slow him down somehow. But yeah, that was both of those games were entertaining games though.
Yeah.
We have had, so far, therefore the NFL is 4 for 4.
Yep.
It has been a successful playoff. I was, like you, I kind of thought that we were going to be the ones that threw the turd in the punch bowl, and that we were going to go in there and get beat bad. But no, we hung in there and hung around and kept them out of the end zone, and came and snuck a win. That's crazy. Good for the NFL. It's been a good weekend so far for the NFL.
And Josh Allen today coming back. I saw almost a damn near 10-yard tush push into the end zone on a 4th and 1 from.
That was crazy.
And yet, as you watch Josh Allen, he's just hobbling down the field. He's grabbing his knee, every other play. And that was the team when I actually mapped it all out. So when I did this, I was like looking at all these things and I was like, how does it turn out that Buffalo is coming out on my side? Because, they weren't even, they had to go into Jacksonville to win this game. They're going to have to win all these games on the road. And then on the other side, I did not pick the 49ers. I ended up picking the Rams, and I had Buffalo and the Rams in the Super Bowl. And yet they were, if you were to look at that game, both games in the fourth quarter, my Super Bowl prediction was almost going to be done, before round 2, but yet both those teams won. So
Right.
it was incredible the way that the playoffs rolled out. And, for one, I'm thankful that the Niners played competitively and then also won because I didn't want to be that one team that was the one bad game because they didn't play. The Niners were up to the job and they they did. And this is playoff football, man. It's kind of amazing how you know the NFL does it with such the short schedule and 18 games, yet it's the most physical and the most injuries. And all of these games matter. And I compare it to, my Warriors, and it's like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
some of these games matter. Some of these games don't really matter. Like, it's hard to get as dialed in. But now, postseason, all these games come down to the wire. These guys are fighting so hard. These coaches are fighting so hard. It is amazing how the NFL has really figured out sports, like in general. They've just figured out everything with how to do sports correctly.
Yeah, you turn on your Warriors and they're playing against the you're going you know you're I'm waiting to cover my eyes, but I tune in to see them play Oklahoma City and nobody's playing. They just
Yeah.
have just decided they're gonna we're gonna this is a scheduled loss. And yeah, you don't that's something you don't really don't see that in the NFL.
Yeah.
All 17 games. Well, I'm not gonna say that because, you know, week 18, there was some poo-poo platters where teams,
But in
were
some
playing.
cases, it worked out because there were still opportunities to get seeds, like that Niners in Seattle in week 17. It was like or week 18, like, you couldn't get any better than that, right? For what it meant to the playoffs, and now has become a sneak preview for the divisional round, like, for whatever they're doing, they're doing correctly. All right,
Yeah.
prediction. What do you we were I'm kinda good picking the other team to win because it worked against Philly. But we're
Right.
I think Seattle's gonna be like a 6 or 7 point favorite, like right out of the gate. What do you think about Sunday, or it might be Saturday? We're hoping Sunday, but in Seattle, what's the shot here? Do you think the Niners keep it close? Do the Niners win? What is your prediction?
Well, I am ready to sign up for a replay and then just hope we can score one more touchdown and a two-point conversion and win that one. Um, well, I guess that wouldn't work because we lost by 10. So we would need more than that. We would need a field goal
Yeah.
and a touchdown and two-point conversion to win by 1. How about that? I'm gonna go ahead and but to I'm slow on the uptake. Yes, I'm gonna pick
Yeah,
Seattle
I'm picking Seattle
and
too because it worked.
and hopefully the reverse happens again and they go in there and they beat them. So that's what I'm rooting for. So we are my official pick is the Seahawks.
I think they got to stay within 3 to 7 points if they are losing, by the time the fourth quarter comes, because the one thing, and I would love to know how Shanahan does this, because there's some series in this game, and I'm like, okay, we get it. You need to give Christian the ball just to make sure that the defense knows. But this 2 yards per carry stuff is not working. Can we be a little bit more creative? But it's just like, I know that play is going to set up another play an hour later because you want them to have that in the back of their mind. I know all of this stuff. I know Shanahan is like, um, what was that movie where they had all the formulas just in the air? Like, this is Shanahan's brain.
Yeah.
He's got like all the stuff
Yeah.
in the air thinking about this, right? And I would just love to know, like, did this second quarter, 3rd and 5 run that CMC gets back to the line of scrimmage, is there any other strategy for that, like later in the game? They finally threw a screen pass to my guy today, the rare screen pass. We haven't really seen that much this year. But yeah, I just hope they stay competitive, they stay close, because, and I truly believe this, I think Sam's going to throw us one. He might throw us two. And how does he then come back from that? That is my feeling in these moments, And, regular season, week 18, 17th game, he played well. I don't think he played great. I don't think they trusted him to do much because they were able to run the ball so well. So that's what I hope, is that defensively we find ways to slow that running game down so that they are forced to see if Sam can do some stuff. Because in my vision of how the Niners play well, a big part of that is Sam. His butt cheeks getting a little tight there in the fourth quarter. That is, I think, our process and how we can win this game.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, Niner family, Niner Nation, folks who are listening to this and watching this, we appreciate you so much. Who'd have thunk it by, the way that this season started and how we've kind of progressed, and just the guys that have been, just injured here and there, and we lose another one. We lose, maybe the heart and soul of this football team today, and yet they carry on. And, there is something to be said about that, when you can still get your team to play up to the level that the Niners have been able to play up without some of their main big time talent. And let's not forget, and because I was thinking about this when I saw Malik Turner and Jake Tonjes and Kyle Juszczyk out there as possible receivers on plays, I was like, yeah, we actually thought we were going to have BA this year, and we don't have BA this year. So what they've been able to do with the personnel that they have has been fantastic and amazing, and makes this team very easy to root for. By the way, there is no dislike in my heart for how this football team plays football. So
This is a team that, I've seen championships. I've seen this team make it to championships, and this is probably one of the most fun teams I've ever watched, because it is every week. It is something new, a new way to win a game, and they are clearly not the most talented team that we've ever seen. But damn it, if they don't fight, and they're going to end up being, by number of wins, a very, very, they've been already, they're playing with house money.
yeah,
Everything that they have accomplished so far is just, it's really incredible, and it's been real fun to watch.
I know we also had some new viewers today, so if you can click on that subscribe button, we would very much appreciate that, because we will be back next week after the Niners and Seahawks, whenever that game is. And also, if you're a new listener on the audio feed, make sure to subscribe on the audio, and also throw us an Apple Podcast 5-star review. That would be tremendous. If you do that, we will read it on air. I've promised folks that we would do that. So, all right. Thank you to everybody who was hanging out in the chat. Thank you to everyone who's listening. We got another one. We got one more week at least. So for Rod, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.